All right, good evening. 6:30. This is the Newport Board of Selectmen's meeting for March 6th, 2023. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, agenda review. Keith, anything?
I have nothing.
Jim, good? Herb? All set. Barry, you're online. Do you have anything? You're muted.
Yeah,
Can we dump that one? Or who's that?
it's Mr. DeCrissia Farr.
Okay. Barry, anything?
Not muted.
All right. I've got two changes I want to make. We have Ronald Grand Mason, is that correct? Yes, sir. Here from the state to talk about what they would like to do to Main Street, and I'd like to move him up right after our minutes, or right after consent agenda. And then after, I guess, communication, since we have people from the school district here, I'd like to move the action item, termination of the lease of the school district bus barn, up above informational. Is that all right with everyone?
I'm okay with it. Yep.
All right. Hunter, do you have anything? Any changes?
No.
All right. Next up, we have our minutes from the February 20th. Do I have any motion on that?
Move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second them.
All right, I have one change on page 4 of 4, under school bus garage, on the second line. The first word non-public should read budget workshop. They were minutes from the school board's budget workshop, not a non-public session. That's the only change I have. All right, that being the only change, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstaining?
Excuse me,
Yes.
you have a chairperson, select board member on Zoom, you need to do a roll call vote.
Okay, thank you. We'll do a roll call vote. Barry? Can't hear you. Give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. I looked up. All right, Herb?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Keith? Yes, and I'll vote yes. All right?
English language here.
Yeah. Consent agenda. On the back of your agenda is tonight's consent agenda. Do I have a motion on that?
So move. Second.
Any discussion? All right, take a roll call vote. Barry?
Yes.
Herb?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Keith?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. All right. All right. Where would I move the Main Street? Up,
Main Street is now.
all right. Now we'll move up to Main Street striping plan. Mr. Grand Mason. And I guess maybe Todd Carty, you want to introduce him and explain what we're looking at here tonight?
Yeah, so Ronald Grand Mason is with the New Hampshire DOT, and this is in regards to the Main Street repaving,
I think we've got these already.
You probably do.
addressing the crosswalks and restriping.
I appreciate the board's willingness to put me ahead of everybody else. I apologize to everybody else, unless they're here to see this too. Would this be the most appropriate place to put this maybe?
These are different notes in our packet.
I can move it.
They're slightly different.
Let me, actually, let me go look here.
Measurements and steps on it.
I can't get on.
So, specifically what I was asked to come and talk about, my name is Ron Graham Mason, I'm the chief of the pavement section of the Department of
I think
Transportation,
we've got these maybe.
AKA a project manager. So, this has been a long time coming, paving downtown. We've done some other things already to the east. We're doing some district resurfacing to the west. Finally, we have to do downtown. We wanted to get buy-in from the town before doing any of the downtown that was going to really reflect what downtown Newport is. So this is the area map. I'm going to leave this with the group, but this is where we're paving this year. We're going to be advertising April 4th, so hopefully we'll be able to. I don't know if I can get this any better. So, essentially what we're looking at is existing parking spots. We had these 4 crossings, established crossings already, with breaks in the median islands. Go across 4 lanes of traffic, plus all the parking spots as well. Again, I'll leave all of these things with you as well. You can leave them out in the hallway for residents to look at. When we go through and we do a paving project, in this particular case, we're doing a 2-inch mill and fill, so we're taking out a substantial amount of pavement, putting the same amount back. That way, we're not going to increase the elevation, not going to ruin anything as far as sewer manholes, water shutoffs, anything like that. So the intent of this project is to get to preservation. We want to be able to preserve the downtown, we want to preserve the pavement, we want to move traffic efficiently and as smoothly as possible. District Forces did some drainage work already. This past
I
summer.
keep tapping the unmute button, the guy can't hear me.
So, the drainage improvements were already taken care of, some maintenance work, and now we're gonna make everything black again. So, we don't typically restripe on-street parking when we come through and do a paving, even though we do full width. That's, up to the municipality. Typically, that's their jurisdiction. I was asked, as part of our paving project, if I could include the striping. The only way I can include the striping as part of this project is to make it what they call MUTCD compliant, Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices. So you have to have a certain distance away from crosswalks, established crosswalks, side roads, fire hydrants, that sort of thing. Have to have the right amount of ADA spaces as well. So in this particular case, you start off with 114 spaces in the downtown area, generally in this area here. 170 standard spaces and 7 accessible spaces. After the paving, in order to make it MUTCD compliant, unfortunately, we get down to 76 spaces, 3 car accessible spaces, 1 van accessible spaces, and you can see the layout here in this particular aerial here. And that takes into account any sight distance issues we have in relation to any of these crosswalks, pedestrians that are walking across. Either they can't see vehicles moving along the roadway, or the vehicle can't see them. So it actually makes it safer for the pedestrians and for any of the drivers. And this last plan is just takes the aerial out and shows the spots that we're talking about. One of the requests that was also made was to make these head-in parking spots right here. I believe there's a health center or a gym on this side, to make those parallel spots as opposed to pull in, because there were some issues with, especially during the winter. The winter snow buildup creates a problem for vehicles out into the travel way, and essentially it turns this bottleneck into a one-lane area. So we wanted to, with that,
One lane or
one
less.
lane or less. So it was asked that we make that slight modification as well. Construction won't start right off the bat, of course, because you have as much snow as I do in Andover. So there is time for adjustments. If you see something that you'd like to make some adjustments to, we could probably do that. And I'd like to open it up to any questions, comments, concerns.
Yep, you also have a plan which may be circulating, but you provided us, that eliminates one of those 4 crosswalks there in the center of Main Street and reduces it down to 3. And that gets us another 14 or 15 parking spots.
That is correct. The National Heritage Bureau actually felt that actually the handouts that I gave you, one of them is a rendering of what it looks like to, don't know if I can. I didn't put those. Thanks. Shows a rendering of the new curb ramps, the 88 curb ramps up to the Opera House and the courthouse. So these right here, one of the suggestions was, since this is a permanent structure, impact to the environment, that we needed to look at other alternatives that were less intrusive. So instead of 2 of these ramp systems, we just went with consolidating 1. However, based on an on-site meeting with the town and the Heritage Bureau and the Conservation Commission, they wanted to keep all 4 of those crossings. So unless the town changes their mind and wants to consolidate those, we'd still be willing to do those.
Did they have a rationale for keeping all 4?
Unfortunately, I was not at that meeting. Do you remember, Craig?
I was there. I know there was discussion, and the big discussion was the one in front of the Opera House, how that was going to affect. And then I think, just in relation to handicap access, if there's a handicap vehicle parking and having access to a ramp. But I think we talked about eliminating that one and leaving the one in the middle, which would be just to the north of that.
Right, it's basically eliminating the middle 2 and then putting a new one in halfway between them. So you sort of like split the loss. And it would also, if I'm hearing you correctly, means would be putting in 1 handicapped ramp. And that
Correct.
ramp would not be dumping people right into the bell casing.
Oh, correct.
Basically, it would end up coming up onto the sidewalk pretty much in front of the Opera House.
Correct. And it would more or less line up the single crossing to the handicap accessible area from that aspect. And that was one of the reasons why my design team thought about, if the Heritage Bureau didn't like the fact of having these two major ramps put in, that we consolidated into 1.
And right now, there is nothing there for handicapped accessibility.
They have to go all the way down,
Right.
essentially, or right up at the corner. So
And Any questions from the board? Jim, your thoughts?
So the center aisle used to be parallel parking until they redesigned it 20 some odd years ago.
Right.
And then they made it like it is now. About a dozen years ago, we made it compact only, maybe less than that, actually. But my question is, you're painting this just now, or?
We will paint, good question. We'll paint it the first time as part of the project, and then any future maintenance would be be the responsibility of the town.
And if you don't paint it this time, we can leave it as it is?
If we don't paint it this time, you could paint it to whatever you want, because we wouldn't be painting anything as part of this project. We are paving the whole thing, so it would just be a wide open black area.
So was it my understanding that if you do the ramps, though, we have to do the MUTCD?
If we do the ramps and we do the crosswalks,
Yep.
the reason for going to the MUTCD compliant parking is because we would be doing it as part of our federal project. If we don't do the striping for the downtown parking area, and we just put in the crosswalks, we have to put in the ramps, but we don't have to do the striping for the parking. You could do whatever you want as far as the striping is concerned. We strongly recommend against certain things and making sure that it's MUTCD compliant, but we have no jurisdiction.
Right, one of the, I guess, requirements in becoming compliant with whatever that acronym is, would be setbacks from crosswalks, side streets and all. We wouldn't be able to have parking right up to the very
Correct.
corner. So we'd be losing a few spots that way.
Right, that's Americans with Disabilities. And that's, PROAG, it's a national law that we must comply with when we're doing paving projects. Even if we're doing just a skim coat, a paver drag shim or whatever, we still have to comply by doing any ADA ramps.
Jim?
Just a question, who was there from Heritage, and does this plan have a thumbs up from Heritage?
Laura Black, from the National Heritage Bureau.
So nothing, not our Heritage Commission?
Oh, no, we actually had
Yes,
somebody.
we had Larry and
Jackie.
Cody.
Okay.
And she, from what I heard from my staff, they were all about the safety, because there were several close calls.
Because I'm on the Heritage Commission, I don't remember seeing this. That's why I asked that
Yeah,
question.
we communicated to Jackie and to Betty, and Betty wasn't available, so Jackie came as a representative.
Okay.
Did you have concerns from a,
First I've heard of it was tonight, so.
okay?
Barry, do you have any comments, questions?
No, I'm listening.
Okay. Keith?
No, I don't think so. I mean, as far as how much is it gonna cost? If we stripe it or if they stripe it, does it cost the same?
If they do it, it doesn't cost us anything first time.
This is true.
But if they do it, it would be, it would be compliant, be setbacks from corners, so.
Right. Can we afford to lose 40 parking spaces?
That's if you keep all the crosswalks, you can recover some of those by
Yep.
consolidating crosswalks.
Well, I know you commented where you could take out the two middle ones and just put one halfway between.
Right, which is
But-
what their drawing shows.
To do that, you'd have to reconstruct the island in the middle as well, because there are openings in the island.
Correct. We would close those up as part of the project and then open up a new one
Okay,
for.
okay,
We would do that as part of the project.
okay.
Herb, your thoughts?
No real questions. I did want to point out that we had several citizens complain about the ugly green signs downtown. So removing the crosswalk would also remove a couple of those signs.
Who's requirement are those signs? That meet that standards to have those up, or is that, who chose to put those signs up, I guess? the state did?
I guess I'm not sure which signs you're exactly talking about.
The giant lime green crosswalk signs that litter Main Street.
I would have to check in with our traffic bureau to see if they're required as part of, I think they are required if there are crosswalks that are in place as an advance warning. Unless we were to put up a rapid flashing beacon, which I don't think you'd want that because it would be flashing lights and 10 times worse than just a stationary sign. Safer, but
theoretically.
theoretically.
Is there anyone in the public that has a question or comment on this? Yes, state your name for the record.
Rich Spalding Senior. Your number was 114 or 117 parking spaces?
114 to start. I think it's a net loss of approximately 35.
Yes, sir. State your name, please.
Wayne Woodman. I think the old green painted walkways for the, for the crosswalks stood out with no problem at all. I mean, with these zigzag lines out there that nobody really sees them. I do back to the green where everybody sees them coming down the street. I mean, they stand right out. I think they're a lot better than those ugly signs that are hanging out there. I mean, stop at the stop sign and just look down the street. Them things stand out like, ugly. This is a little town of Newport. It's not, Hanover.
I don't think there's a either or. I think you have to have the signs if you have the crosswalk, regardless of if the crosswalk is painted or not.
Then they got more signs to put up because we got a lot more crosswalks that don't have signs.
Yeah. There's a lot of crosswalks all the way down through town, rest of North Main Street.
And state your name, please.
Kurt Minnick. On the signs, I think there's way too many signs in town, period. It's just cluttered with signs, which brings me to the old Who song, signs, everywhere a sign. Tell me what to do and all that kind of stuff. So in saying all these signs, you become oblivious to them. Everywhere you look, there's a sign. There's so many signs, you don't see the signs. I think we ought to find a way to cut back on signs.
Bert?
I'd like to ask a question just for everybody here. How many people on their way to this meeting tonight saw those signs, actually looked at them?
With the headlights on? Yeah.
I didn't.
You didn't?
I didn't.
You're blind anyway.
Careful of it.
Jeff, in the back there.
Craig Sarwell.
Yes.
My main concern is pedestrian traffic downtown, and I don't think there's a person in this room that can say that somebody hasn't come off of one of those sidewalks onto a crosswalk between a couple of cars, and you haven't seen them till the last second. So, making this new plan and the safety that it calls for by the design of the MUTCD standard, what will be the cost to the town should a pedestrian get hit down there by, let's say, one of our public works vehicles, school bus, fire truck, emergency services? It could happen. You say you don't see the signs. Well, I can tell you, a lot of times you don't see a person. So, happens to me a lot, especially during the winter storm, raining hard during the summer. By going with this new design, I think the chances of that happening become significantly less and benefits the town itself in a big way.
Yep. And it's been a while since we've had someone killed crossing there. That has happened.
Yeah.
We've have had a fatality to a pedestrian crossing there. So you're feeling this having the setbacks will open it up and make it easier to see people before they
Absolutely.
step right out from behind a van or
Absolutely.
something into your path.
Craig, do you feel more comfortable with the losing one sidewalk? Do you think that would be a safer situation?
Yeah, I mean, is there really a need for 4 of them through that section? I don't think
I don't
so.
think so, I mean, they're fairly
I think
close
3
together.
is more than enough. 1 at each end of that section and 1 in the middle is, I think that's plenty.
Kurt?
I probably have, in the school bus, I have great visibility. That's what they're designed for, so you can see everything. And when I come up through town, I have to just about stop at every crosswalk. Because by the time you look left and the time you took right, whoops, you gotta look left again because someone's gonna sneak up there on you. So I agree with opening the spaces up and get more visibility. You gotta stop. You gotta come to 2 miles an hour, then roll through to the next one.
Craig?
Again, along with Mr. Minnick's point, how many people actually do what he's talking about driving through town? I don't think very many.
Do what?
Slow down and look.
I do.
That's what I'm saying, but how many actually, other than, you know,
Yeah.
it's a point well made, in my
Too
opinion.
busy trying to avoid the signs.
Is there anyone on Zoom that wants to speak on this? Check, all right.
I do.
And state your name for the record, please.
Lawrence DeCristofaro Jr.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I want to first of all thank Mr. Leesburg for calling me back regarding 69 Chandler Mills and explaining the tax sale process to me. I'm a neighbor of the property, and the vermin and trash that's in the yard is what I wanted to talk about, but I didn't get a chance.
No, I'm sorry, we're speaking right now on just the downtown paving and the crosswalks and all. But we'll have an
I apologize,
opportunity.
I didn't understand.
Okay, when we get to open forum, you'll have an opportunity to speak on that.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand, that's what I thought we were doing.
No problem, no problem. Anyone else on this proposed parking? Yes, and state your name for the record.
Donna Magoon. I appreciate the safetiness that this has, because when we're looking at our kids in the walking distance, you know, it's 2 miles from their school, and so we'll have kids walking on this street and having to cross this street, and so I agree. It's not until you get right up upon it, and then all of a sudden someone just pops out and you don't know. You know, and especially if people are just driving through and they're not familiar with this area, it can be very dangerous, and so I appreciate this, the new look.
Any other questions, comments from the public? What's the pleasure of the board? First off, do we want to paint our own lines, or do we want to go with the state recommended plan that'll reduce probably about 30 parking places if we keep 4 crosswalks, or maybe 15 to 20 if we redo it with only 3 crosswalks, which would also pull out a set of those signs everyone admires.
I would say the 3 sidewalk plan would be best, and also let them go ahead and paint it and do the whole job.
I would agree with that. That means a safer Main Street, and for the sake of a few parking spaces.
Barry, go ahead.
I'm trying to figure out why we wouldn't go for safety. I think that's a big issue. But at the same time, I'm thinking what effect will the losing of the spaces have on people that have businesses there? But I'd first opt for safety, to be honest with you.
I guess people will have to walk further to get to the business if there's no parking spot right there on the corner.
Well, people that want to go in will have to walk farther, yeah.
Right. Anyone want to make a motion on this?
I move that we accept the state's MUTCO approved plan, reducing the number of sidewalks to 3, and allowing the state to do the paving and striping.
Can I just speak before the vote?
Do I have a second?
I would second that.
Okay, Kurt?
So what's the idea? Do you want communication from the community when they put these out in the forum? Or is that just for information for them after you vote, they're gonna look at it and see what they've got coming?
This is what, they'll see what's coming.
Thank you.
All right, any discussion on the board on this? Barry, anything more? All right,
No, I'm all set.
all right, we'll take a roll call vote. Barry?
I vote yes.
Bert?
Yes.
Jim?
2 less signs, yes.
Yes.
Yes from Keith, and I'll vote yes. All right.
Excellent.
Now, let me ask you a question on another bit of striping. Who's responsible for painting the crosswalks down at the light? At Route 10 and Route 11, 103.
Right down here.
Right.
That we're gonna be paving through anyway, we'd be restriping those
Okay.
as part of our project. So any of those impacted lines, whether they're crosswalks or, any of the regular lane lines, we would be taking care of that as part of our project.
Right, but traditionally, that is a state responsibility, that crosswalk?
Correct.
Okay. It's been kind of hard to get the state out here in the past couple of years to do that.
We've had some, not to make excuses, but I'm going to, I guess. We've had a serious depletion of our forces, and stencil crews was one of those, and they're the ones that are responsible for crosswalks as well as any of the stencils that are required on the pavement markings, so I apologize for that. But once we're done here, you'll have all fresh new striping through here. One caveat that I would like to make mention of is in those pictures you have the green center. That would be the responsibility of the town. We could do, the 2 outer lines. Typically, we'll do a continental, which is a ladder style, but I know that you wouldn't want that as
Well,
part of
that's
your
what we have
downtown.
now.
Is that what you have right now, is
Yes,
the
it is.
continental? Would you prefer the 2 lines so that you could paint the center, or do you like the continental style? I'll give you that option.
Yeah,
Continental style, please.
I mean, I like the continental style myself. I think it seems to last longer.
Right.
Green looks good for about a week.
Or about 10 minutes if it rains right after you pave it.
Right.
Okay.
Quick question.
Thank you very
I have
much.
a question.
Those will be thermal. So they would last.
We've got another question for you.
Oh, yeah.
The dead space triangles, so at the intersection of Sunapee Street, Main Street, there's another one down at Central Street. Are those gonna be hash marked out?
Would you like those hash marks out?
Well, they're designed not to be parked in, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, they ought to be hash marked out, so it's clear that they shouldn't be parked in there.
All right.
Because currently, they park all through.
One more question. On your original paving plan for this year, that first sheet,
Yep.
it's all the red, correct?
Correct.
Sunapee Street, do we have any changing plans for Sunapee Street, or is it just a pave?
It's just a pave. I think it's all still a 2-inch mill and fill through those areas. We do have some guardrail that we're going to be putting in near the mill building down there, because that's in serious disrepair right now. So we'll be doing those and any necessary ADA ramps for the sidewalks and matching any crosswalks. Any other questions?
Bert, do you have a question?
Yes. The paving project on 11-103 ends at the Sugar River. As you had shown down below.
Oh, down here? Yes, yes it does. However, we just advertised a project, actually the bid's open, I think tomorrow, for paving from Sugar River further west.
all the way to the Sugar River again and kill it.
I think that's where the terminus is, yes.
Right.
All right,
All right, thank you.
thank you very much for your time, I appreciate it.
Okay.
And I do have some business cards, would you like me to leave them? Just in case somebody has.
I've got, well,
Okay.
unless anybody in the public wants to know, we're done.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Yeah. Greg and Todd know how to get a hold of you, right?
Yes, they do.
All right, moving on. Open forum. This is the opportunity for any member of the public to speak to the board on items that are not on the agenda. The public can speak on agenda items when we get to them. Anyone wishing to speak to us on open forum? And let me start with the gentleman on Zoom who was there before. Are you still there?
I am, if you're speaking to Larry DiCristofaro.
I am. You had a thing to
I'm
bring up.
sorry, I was hearing Barry before and I thought it was Larry.
Well, we do have a Barry that's also on Zoom.
That's why I was answering.
Yeah.
What I wanted to say was thank you to Mr. Reesberg for calling me back and explaining the tax sale process a little more to me. I'm speaking about 69 Chandler's Mill Road, where I've moved to recently. I purchased a house from the town a few years ago, and there's a mobile home that's in complete disrepair, and the yard is loaded with trash, and there's a lot of vermin that are going through it, and it's just not being got to. Now, I don't mind bidding on the property. I'm aware of the huge IRS lien and everything else, and I'm not trying to speak of my own personal interest of bidding on the property, but it just has to be cleaned up because of what's over there, and as the snow breaks, it's only gonna get worse. And I was also wondering if when you do put it out to bid, if it's possible that in the bid, that there be a permit guaranteed to be able to demolish and remove what's there. And if the town, if you're unable to put it up for a tax sale, does the town have a contingency plan to get it cleaned up? Because I'm not the only one. I can hear some of my neighbors talking, and they're quite aware of what's going on over there as far as the animals, because people went into the house and flung everything from inside the home out into the front yard. And that's why I'm calling and asking. I understand that you're going as fast as you can on the bid, but I'm just afraid that once the snow breaks, the vermin that are going to grow over there are going to be terrible. They're there in the dead of winter.
Yep. Generally, I think we have a few properties we'll be looking at for tax sale and determining which ones we'll put out for, to get bids on. And until then, I really can't say anything more, but, you'll just have to keep an eye on the website, because they'll all be posted when we do that, and,
Everybody keeps talking about the bid, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the filth. I moved out of Providence to get away from filth.
Yeah.
And I think that this house has been dumped into the front yard, and there's animals and rats running through it. And if you don't put it up for bid, or do put it up for bid, it's pretty irrelevant. It's just a matter of who's gonna clean it up, sir. And I don't know who I'm talking to, but I'm more concerned about the cleanup. I'm not really interested in owning 5 feet of land on a river. I'm only taking it to clean it, if I do happen to be the person.
right. And I'm Jeff Kessler, I'm chairman of the Board of Selectmen. And if we put it up for sale, it would be with the condition that the buyer would most likely be required to clean it up. If the town decides to keep the property, we would go in and clean it up ourselves, but we haven't made that determination yet.
Beautiful. Thank you. As long as there's a plan to clean it up. That was my concern with this phone call.
Yeah, Hunter, did I miss anything?
No, not particularly. Those properties, there were 3 properties deeded today, and that property was one of them.
Okay,
So I expect that those deeds will be recorded tomorrow. And over the next several weeks, we'll put together a bid package and offer those properties for bid, pretty much to coincide with a sale that would herald the arrival of spring and an ability to go in there and really do a good job cleaning that property.
right, his concern is, as the snow goes, the debris gets exposed, and
Sure.
it is an attractive nuisance.
Yep, so it's ready to go now, and all we gotta do is figure out the bid schedule, and I imagine, as I said, I would think, probably in
early April, thereabouts, we'll be offering those for bid.
Okay. All right, Larry, did you hear that?
I did, sir, and thank you very much. That's what I'm saying, is I'm more concerned about it being cleaned up. I will bid even with the big IRS lien and everything.
Okay. All right, anything else?
No, sir, and I just want to thank you guys very much.
Okay, thanks for tuning in.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else from open forum? Bert? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm gonna skip you and go to Morris since she hasn't spoken yet. Can you state your name for the record, please?
Morris Stetson,
Thank you.
5 Allen Street. December 16, 2022, I brought to the board's attention the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire. That's the coalition that is getting together for lower electrical rates for the residents, not for municipalities, but for the residents of the town. And I did not know if you had gotten any further in looking into it,
No, I have not.
or anyone on the board.
I'm not hearing anything. Maybe if you could forward that
Or maybe, it's in the minutes of
Okay.
December 16th.
December
Okay.
16th.
Maybe Upper Valley could, make you aware of what it's all about.
Yeah. Hunter?
Yeah, we're aware of that program, and we're going to be getting in line to enroll the community to the degree that will work. With RPC has been one of the primary points of contact on that.
All right. All right, all set.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Bert, you had a hand up?
I should think it'd be a bit embarrassing for the community. How many years has it been? It's been long enough that anything of value was stolen, and then it turned the other way where they deposit trash. And this is the third time in front of you guys that I've talked to about this. How many years has it been? That's a question. I'm looking for an answer.
We're talking about that property on Chambersville.
We certainly are.
Okay. I don't have an answer for you.
Okay? Highway Department? Somebody? Don't you care? I mean, I should think you would care. It's important to the community. And to just, if you don't drive by it every day, it's just not there. So I make a request for the date, right here, so people can know how long it's been.
What date?
The date of when it was vacated and when all of the trash was put outside, and how many years it's been that way. How about a guess, Jeff?
I would say since we're just taking it for tax deed, it's probably been about 3 years.
Okay, all right, so there's 3, all right, and you're a low bidder.
Okay.
My bet, it's been 5,
Okay.
okay? So, that being said, what happened in that time period? What could you have done to just have taken the trash away and put a lien on the property? Something. Yes, I understand personal belongings, I understand you have court procedure, but when did you get on it, when did you get off of it? It is unacceptable to go that length of time and leave a disaster like that beside the road. When you auction it off, will you make it clear that it is not a buildable lot? 1, can't get a septic system on it. Doesn't have the area and size to do it. So will you make that clear to the people when you post it? Or does that remain hidden and the person buy it with an expectation of building on it? And my third part is, will you accept negative bids? Because it's probable that somebody will not bid positively on it because it will cost by the time he removes everything that's on it. So would you accept negative bids? I mean, if somebody bid minus 100, would you give them $100 to take it?
Can't answer that one until we get bids in.
Well, we've had a lot of people go by it 5 years and see it and know that it is absolutely garbage. And it's just a shame that you have allowed that to happen for that length of time.
Anything else?
It's enough.
All right. Anyone else from open forum? Kurt?
In the near future at all, the the very near future, is there gonna be any public discussion on the taxes we're paying? And what I'm referring to is the taxes went up real quick. And I don't know if it's to the advantage of the income from the town is why it went up so quick. Now everything's really settling down, but I don't hear any noise about knocking the tax rate down with what's happening to the value of the houses and the activity. So I'm wondering is what our tax revenue was before the increase for the town, and what the tax in revenue is now with its current rates. Is that increase over and above what the inflation is?
The tax revenue that the town brings in did not change. Basically, our budget is set last May. The fact that we had a reevaluation and our property values went up a bunch and our tax rates went down some. The way it worked, property values went up about 80% for residential properties, 1 and 2 family homes. Commercial properties, multifamily homes, those went up probably about 45%. So overall, our tax rate now is about 60-some% of what it was. So unfortunately, because single and 2 family residential property went up as much as it did, while commercial property did not, it wasn't an even ratio. If you own commercial property, you're probably ending up paying less in taxes. But the residential property, you're paying more in taxes, but at a lower rate because your property has been reassessed for about 80% more than what it was assessed for a year ago. But as far as the money the town's bringing in, that doesn't change. It's not like, you're paying more taxes, so the town's getting more. Yes, those of us with residential properties are paying more in taxes, but the commercial properties are paying less in taxes because theirs did not go up as much.
So what's the reasoning on that?
Because the market did not show such an increase in commercial property over the
Well, that's my
past
point.
5 years.
That's my point, is that the residentials now, their value is not what it was, at the start of this whole.
Right, their appraised value is about 80% higher overall than what it was a while ago.
Which
And that
doesn't
was-
hold up now.
That we'll find out in another 4.5 years when we get the next appraisal.
So for another 4.5 years, we're gonna be burdened with these extra taxes. Because you increase the values on the individual homes.
We did, the appraiser
Well,
did.
Right.
And the reappraisal of the town is in the state constitution to be done every 5 years. So it's not something we on our own decide. We basically are directed by the state constitution to do it. And this past one was, I guess, it's called a statistical reevaluation. It's not a full board, go in and inspect your house sort of thing. So we came out of it for probably a third of what it would have cost otherwise, for about $100,000 instead of about $300,000 to do it. And pretty much we need to start saving for the next one in 4 years.
So how did we get so much out of balance that all of a sudden it jumped up 80% just like that?
Because,
How we let that happen?
well, I think it's because people started selling their homes to people escaping from urban areas during the pandemic that wanted to come up here, and it was basically a bidding war for a while. I think in the last year or two, you look at the number of home sales and home constructions here are way up from what they historically have been pre-pandemic. So we basically are a victim of the market.
there's no way of adjusting that now that it's not even close to what it was. The market is real soft right now. So,
I think part of the softness is, people have settled in, they're not looking to escape from urban areas, plus interest rates have gone up, which have put a damper on it some. But we basically, got about 4 years to wait until we get reappraised again.
there's nothing in there that lets them relook at the rates they put on the increases they put on our houses, even if they're way off, like they might be again now, like they were for a long time, to jump it up 80% all of a sudden. So we're gonna live with their higher evaluation for 4.5 more years, and it might be wrong, which is what the market shows in Newport now.
Yeah, I can't speak to what the market is.
But they won't relook at it?
We probably could invest a couple $100,000 tax money to get another appraisal done.
Well, that's a stopper. But if it's just a matter of percentages, they don't come out and do any field work. You punch in the computer, this is what the percentages are now, after we looked at blah, blah, blah. Can you punch us out the new values? I mean, it sounds like $200,000, you want to stop the conversation, but maybe that's not the end of the conversation. Maybe there is an easy way to do it.
That I don't know.
Are we going to look into it for our citizens?
Hunter?
It's a statistical analysis, and every year the state evaluates the sales to see if there's actual evidence in the field to warrant what you're talking about. Usually there isn't that big a swing from year to year, but they do watch that, and you have to look at the standard deviation and the statistical evaluation of home sales. So if they have a home that's assessed for, just going to make this up, $200,000, and they find out that it sells for $100,000, that in and of itself doesn't warrant a community-wide reevaluation. If over a year or two they saw dozens and dozens of houses selling for that kind of disparity, they might intervene if it was that dramatic, but typically it isn't. But it's based on actual sales in the community. If you're only selling, 10 or 15 houses a year, statistically speaking, that doesn't present enough of an argument for them to order a
Well,
rebuild.
for all the money, thank you, for all the money that's moving around, you're saying they watch it.
Every year.
Well, we can all watch it together, but are they gonna do something? Now, you're gonna say, no, there's only a couple of houses that were 200,000, they sold for 100. That means a lot to the citizens. If, they're paying, they might get away with paying $500 less with this new, because the market is gone, the high market. And that's what they base everything on, which is very unfair. They got this big influx and they put the values up, and they should have done it for a year to see if they're going to stay there. But they're going to drag this on for 4.5 more years, and they're not going to stay there. They haven't already. And that's very unfair.
It's purely a statistical analysis. They have to see the data out of the field to suggest that there's a big disparity there.
Well, my analysis is they're too high.
I wouldn't argue with that analysis, but the state won't typically accept our opinions for such things. They want to see the data, the field, the sales data come in and support that activity.
Do we have anyone in our faculty, that the administration, that watches the data also, so we can, give them a heads up when, hey, we just sold 10 houses here for 38% below the value of what you say they're worth. Do we have someone in our administration that red flags that and sends it down there, or goes down and talks to them to get some real answers?
All that data is reported directly to the state, so they're aware of it as quickly almost as we are.
But who sees that they are acting on it? I mean, we just say, well, the data's down there, we'll wait for them. No. Do we have a representative who goes into the office down there and says, we understand the new data is 40% lower than what it was when you...
Yep. Our assessor, myself and Paul, we're in regular communication with them and talk with them when reports come out.
Would our representatives be a good choice to go down there and keep an eye on that?
Your state representatives?
Our state representatives, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they would be as familiar with that data as we are. I mean, the state has certain triggers that when the disparity gets to a certain point.
Well, they don't necessarily have to be aware of the data, they just have to be aware of what they're telling when they go down to see them every month. But what's new? What's the data? Show us the data. They don't have to know the data. They know the data. It just has to be followed up on to see what they're acting on or not acting on, would be more like it, I guess.
Kurt, you have to be careful there because, say, if you convince the state, okay, all these homes are assessed 10% too high, so we're going to reduce them all by 10%. The town runs on the same amount of money. It's like, okay, the real value of property in the town has dropped. Therefore, the tax rate has to go up. If you lower the total value of real property in the town, the rate has to go up so that the amount that's brought in for taxes
Absolutely.
are the same. So people, if you're not going to save 100%, you may save some, but you're going to see an increase in the tax rate.
But you're saying your budget's the same as it was last year, just the monetary increase that... So if they look at it and they watch the commercial sales, with the commercial sales didn't get much of a hit at all, I mean commercial properties.
Not as much as the residential.
Right, so now when they look at the residential, they might see the commercial is going up. So the commercial would start paying their fair share of all these increases, because they gotta be making a lot more money now with all these people from Massachusetts coming up here to buy our properties. They gotta be buying all of our goods and services.
Right, but no one's buying the businesses. You've got to have, commercial property being sold for more than it is worth now. There has to be like a rush to buy commercial property. And
So they base all their stats on sales, not on actual physical. Like, if the big store is worth $5 million, the big plaza. So, and they didn't get an increase at all. But who's to say now that that property is not slowly going up in value because of all this influx of people buying up all these homes that had no one in them? They put the market way up. They were buying houses that you couldn't even live in just to get out of there. So in saying that, the commercial properties they're not paying their fair share like the residential are. And they gotta be getting a good, a little bigger hit.
Well, they got about a 45% hit. Residential got about 80%.
I think mine figured out to 82.
See, you came in a little bit below the curve.
Thank you for tolerating me. Yeah.
That's what we face. So, anyone else we're open for? All right, moving on. Board of Selectmen. Keith, anything?
I have nothing.
Herb?
Nothing.
Jim? Barry?
I'm all set, thank you.
All right, I just want to comment that last Wednesday night and the Wednesday night before, the town held two informational sessions concerning upcoming bond votes on upgrades to our wastewater treatment plant, and then on the installation of a new freshwater well in North Newport. NCTV recorded those events. They should be available either on the town website or NCTV's website. And probably some handouts are available on the town website for those two. Certainly worth checking those out, because those will be issues the town will be voting on in May. That's all I have. Hunter, anything?
No, sir.
All right, moving on. Action item, termination of lease of school bus district bus barn. This came to our attention because the school district voted to basically terminate paying rent for the facility. And pretty much once you vote not to lease, that basically means you're pulling out. So my feeling is, we should consider them as terminating their lease and being gone by the end of June. Is there anyone from the school district wanting to comment on this? Go ahead and state your name, please.
Sure. My name is Jenna Darling. I'm the chairperson of the school board. Thank you for moving the item up on the agenda. I appreciate that. I understand that this conversation has been coming, and for those that aren't aware, that are watching, on November 20th at the school board's budget retreat, there was a unanimous vote by the board to withhold lease payment in order to make improvements to the 2 bays that the school district occupies for the bus barn, given the conditions of the 2 bays that were reported to the board by our transportation director. That was never officially communicated via myself or the superintendent to the select board or to the town manager. And upon further reflection by the board, we did not think it was in the best interest to withhold payment. Looking back on that, I think as my role as the board chair, that could have been communicated to either the select board or to the town manager. It was communicated to the town manager by the interim superintendent, however, on January 26th, that we would be paying our rent for the bus barn. I know that the question of gaining these 2 bays is bigger than what that motion, it started before that motion occurred in November. I had previous conversations with our previous superintendent about concerns over losing these 2 bays. So perhaps this motion is the catalyst, but I know that my understanding is that the town has been interested in getting these 2 bays back for some time. I do have confusion and a question in that on February 21st, I believe we were served our eviction notice. So I'm happy that there's a vote tonight, that maybe there's a chance that that may change, but I was taken aback by the fact that there's a vote now, but our eviction notice was served on February 21st, excuse me. But regardless of that answer, I am respectfully asking that if there's a vote tonight, that you vote no. The people that it is hurting are our students and our families, and I just cannot accept that. The town manager has raised questions about whether or not the school district will continue to uphold its other commitments that we have with the town, which includes our SRO, the grant writer, as well as the voting location and using the Newport Middle High School gym. I know that interim superintendent has communicated that we will uphold those agreements, but for what it's worth for me, the board has never had any conversations about defaulting on any of those responsibilities, because we feel that it is for the betterment of the town, and we see that as being, all of those as being good for both the school district and the town. So, thank you for listening. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, let me run through some of the history on this. I mean, honestly, the rent that has been being paid was set back in 1998, and the condition of the facility hasn't changed since then. So it's not like
It has.
There's been no material change in the system. And let's see, on November 10th, at a school board session, your transportation manager basically talked for about 30 minutes about how bad the conditions were in the bus barn. And then, as you mentioned, on November 20th, your board did vote to withhold the annual lease payment. And that was your budget work session. The next day, actually, I brought up at our meeting about increasing the rent based upon change in consumer price index from 1998 to the present, they're 10,600. And shortly after that, I think I became aware, you mentioned no formal letter was sent to the superintendent, but you took a formal vote at one of your meetings, and you all voted not to pay rent. And you approved those minutes at a later meeting. And then let's see, on some of the things that concern me, I think I think the town manager tried to get a answer from your interim superintendent as to what the intention was, and I think you mentioned that, she did say she was going to pay rent, but that was for the current year. There's been nothing said about going forward and let's see, on January 26th, the school board held a non-public session under 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2D. Consideration of the acquisition, sale, or lease of real or personal property, which is, if discussed in public, would likely benefit a party or parties whose interests are adverse to those of the general community. In the minutes for that meeting stated that the reason was discussion of bus barn contract with town of Newport. We had been talking about the bus barn at our meetings, at the school district meetings. I mean, I'll say it, you guys have been trashing the condition that the barn is in. So we've been talking about it publicly. The school district has been talking about it publicly. I don't see where that was, a legal reason to have a non-public session, because you're talking about an agreement between two public entities. There's no private party that could take advantage of a lease or contract or something. But that's just my opinion. And let's see, on February 13th, at our budget review meeting, we had a discussion about having the school move their buses out of the highway garage, the bus barn. And then on February 20th, we voiced our support at one of our meetings to having the school move out of the highway garage by June 30th. We did not take a formal vote, but we gave our consensus to the town manager, who actually has the authority to make that decision on his own. And then, as you said, on the 21st, town manager emailed your interim superintendent, asking them to move out by June 30th. And he got a response back within 15 minutes, which basically set a record for getting a response from the school administration. And then I heard that on the 22nd, that Rotary, the interim superintendent, was making comments about us kicking the school district out of the bus barn. Heard that from someone who was there. And then the next day, on the 23rd, the school board again goes into non-public session to discuss the bus barn. And so on one hand, we're talking about it in public. The school district is talking about it in public. And the superintendent is commenting on it to a public group. Yet you're holding non-public secret meetings about this item, which there is no party I feel would be grieved here. And I have to ask you this question. Who did you speak to? When you had all these concerns last fall about the condition of the bus barn, who did you come to at the town to say, can we take care of this? Can anyone answer that? Was it all just grieving in public, basically bitching about the condition, of the bus barn? You guys voted not to pay rent, and to me that basically says, if you're not going to pay rent, your approach is to basically take a vote to not pay rent for property you're more or less leasing from the town. You don't have the courtesy to come to anyone at the town, the public works director, the town manager, or anyone, and say, listen, can we do something about this? Was anyone approached? I mean, it's like, you pretty much leave us no choice. I mean, this was nothing, we were sitting here thinking, how can we kick them out of the barn? It's basically your staff and your board deciding, well, we're not gonna pay rent. So that is basically where you left us.
I think there's one thing, listen, Jeff, that we discussed as a board that isn't being relayed here. It's not, we were talking about repurposing the 2 bays, not throwing the bus out until they had no place to park. We were gonna offer them space so that they could park, they could develop, they could reuse their lease funds to develop another place at the site, allowing access to the facilities as needed. But just us acquiring the 2 bays, but not removing and not telling the district you'd have to find some other place to be completely, but just
You're right.
now taking your funds that you would be withholding, if that was the case, but then you could repurpose those to develop a pole barn or other infrastructure there at that same location. You know, so it's not just a matter of moving them out, it's just moving them from one place to another.
You were right, that was communicated in the email.
And honestly, I don't think I know of a school district anywhere that keeps their buses inside.
Claremont does. Claremont
Has
has all
for
of
years.
this.
And they buy less buses than we do because they wash them out when they come in and out. I will interrupt here. Other people did, and you'll allow me.
I did it for 13 years.
When those buses come in, they are washed underneath to get the salt and stuff out from underneath them. It extends their life significantly, and then they're put inside, no vandalism, no nothing. So you ought to know your shit before you start talking.
Any other comments? What's the pleasure of the board? Larry, any comments?
Well, I think we've made our position clear. What I fail to hear is the lack of communication. I mean, everybody's saying they're gonna pay for this. My understanding was they were gonna pay for the rest of the year in June, but that we have yet to fully understand whether they're gonna continue to use that facility and pay a lease. And we are asking also for an increase in that, but we've heard no comment back from anyone on the board. So you've left us in a position of, we've got to protect our budget. We've got to do things that we think are best for the budget. You also stated, someone stated, that you were going to continue with all of your issues, with all of the payments. That was unclear to me. It was unclear that you were actually stating you were going to continue with the business as usual. In fact, I believe you've already pulled out of the Newport Times, and you know, it's part of this is a communication issue. So I think we stay with what we said we were going to do.
All right, Donna?
Sure, if I can just add just a few things. The very first time the amount of this was brought to my attention was on January 27th. On January 27th, it was brought to my attention that it was going to be approximately $10,600. I asked for additional information from Hunter, and I have the emails if anybody needs them. I asked for additional information on what this meant. Does this mean we're getting more? Are we getting less? Is it the same? That I asked for that information. Then on the 30th, I was told that it was $10,600. So I went approximately $10,600 to the intention was $10,600. On the 21st, it was $10,000 So we don't even have a clear amount on how much it's going to be. And I have these emails to show this, that I've asked for more information. I'm being told approximately $10,600. The intention is $10,600. Then it's $10,000 XXX. I don't know what that means. We need something that we can hang our hat on. If this is what you want to charge us, then we need, this is what it's going to be. As far as everything else, we have agreed on everything else. I have emails that if you need to see those, that I have emailed to Hunter stating that I've agreed to pay those. As far as the Newport Times is concerned, we have not pulled out a Newport Times. The last email that I received, Hunter and I were having a conversation. I said, I can't find it in my budget. I don't know what it's under, what it's listed under. And Hunter said that he would have Paul reach out to me to let me know if it was under a different thing, because I have nothing in my budget that says Newport Times or any of that stuff, so I don't know what line item it is. I didn't do the budget for this current school year, so I don't know what line item it's under. And so I've been working with Hunter regarding what is this, and he had said that he would have Paul reach out to me one day this week to get me that information. And then on February 21st, I did say to Hunter that I was going to speak to the board and get back to him. That was February 21st. We haven't even had our March board meeting yet to have this discussion about what we want to do. I can't bring to the board, well, it's going to be, it might be this amount, it might be this amount. We don't have any factual information. That yes, I agree 100% with you that at the beginning, I should have come to you or to Hunter and said, hey, what can we do about these conditions, right? I've learned that, right, that to have that type of communication. I feel that I've been communicating with Hunter. I mean, I'm emailing him at 10 o'clock at night, 10:30 at night. It's just, you know, it's just really sad that our students and our families are the ones that are going to suffer in something. And if it's on me, that makes me even feel worse, because the last thing that I want to do is make our families suffer from any of this. I wish that the board would give us the opportunity for us to meet and to have this conversation on, give us the amount that you want from us, because I haven't been told. I did back in, I think it was on January 26th, I have it in here, that the district has every intent to pay the bus bond, the economic developer, the SRO. We've been paying the SRO. We actually had to reach out to you guys and say, hey, we're supposed to be being billed per our contract every other month or whatever it was, and you guys haven't billed us yet. And so we had to reach out to you guys for that, and we've been paying that as we're supposed to. So I don't understand. I guess I understand the breakdown because of the communication piece, which I think that we both can do better with. I think Hunter and I can both do better when it comes to the communication. But I don't think that our students and our families should have to suffer because of a lack of communication between the town manager and myself. And I wish you would give us the opportunity to meet as a board and have a discussion, give us the amount that you're looking for, let our board meet, have this discussion, and then come back and talk with you about it. Thank you. And I can supply any emails that anybody would like.
Kurt? I think it's at a point where both districts, both boards should go back to zero and start all over again. Erase everything clean, go ahead with the payments like they're doing, and it'll be up to the town to be the bigger people to move this back and let everyone start over again. There's too much effort. So let's smooth it out, control breathing, get down all these signs that are in the way.
Maybe there's something, a really clear answer for this one. Buses parked outside, how does that make the families and the children suffer? I'm missing that part, I guess. I understand what you're saying, and I understand there's probably some hardships with the drivers having to maybe more maintenance or wiping off some snow, but I'm trying not the only one making this. How does that translate?
So what I would have to do is You know, I can look into things for you, right? I can reach out to other bus garages, because there's some bus garages that have their stuff outside and some that are inside, right? It depends upon how old the buses are, right? And how long they take to warm up in the morning, those types of things. The wear and tear on the buses, you know, the safety of the buses, those types of things. I can do research and get you that information and bring it back to you and say, here's the findings. I've reached out to, you know, First Student to see, you know, because I know First Student does some in, some out. Claremont is strictly all in and heated, their bays. I'm not too sure about Sunapee. I can reach out to them and find out, but, I mean, I can get you that information.
The 2 bays that you have now down at those are not heated, correct?
They're not heated and, no, they're dirt floors.
And there wouldn't be a big difference between parking them outside and inside?
Yeah, they would be. The wind, and things are cold, and things are not insulated good. I did Claremont for 13 years. Buses that are parked outside take forever to warm up. Or inside, even our lower building that had 4 buses in, was a furnace near, but it didn't keep it as warm as the big garage. And to bring those things out, they're like an ice cube, and it takes forever for the heat to get into them. They're a big area, you know, twice the size of this room, you know.
I drove a truck for 40 years.
A truck, not a school bus. Look at all the windows in that school bus.
I'm talking about as far as starting the bus.
Oh, yeah, it's not
I mean,
from starting.
There's not a whole lot of difference, and you plug them in. I mean, that's how you get them started, when you don't have the heated...
And they do plug them in inside.
Keith?
How many buses are actually parked inside and how many are parked outside?
The spares are all
No.
outside.
Yeah, our spare buses are outside. All the buses that we currently use, I think there's 6 and a van that are parked inside.
The whole
I can
school
find you
district uses
exactly.
6 buses?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah, I can find out exactly how many buses we have. I don't have, I mean, that's more information I can get for you, but yeah, we do.
Hunter?
Yeah, so, just a couple of points. In 2 bays, there's not enough room to park 6 buses. The school district uses our electricity to plug in block heaters. And one of our communications to the school, we invited them to continue to do that, set up a separate meter. You can run a conduit out to the yard and plug in as many buses as you want. We had repeatedly asked the school district for clarification as to their intent. And to this day, actually until 10 minutes ago, there has been no feedback on this particular issue, despite 2 or 3 inquiries, written inquiries as to what the intent was going forward into the next fiscal year. You all have copies of all my emails back and forth.
I do.
I've seen it with your own eyes. You know, I think it's an unusual event to have a lot of buses parked indoors because of the associated costs. We've all traveled around the country and seen fleets, dozens or hundreds of buses parked outdoors. And like I said, I think the town is more than willing to consider an outdoor arrangement to keep the school might want to consider to put a cold weather storage, basically lean-to or sheds or whatever they care to wish, whatever they want to build. If they want to build 6 or 8 indoor garages, that's something I think that we should or could consider. You know, the garage at the moment is being repurposed for other arrangements to benefit the town of Newport and its equipment that is otherwise parked outdoors. And a grader and excavators and things of that nature are, I think, a little bit more valuable in terms of dollar value than school bus. But I don't see the downside here. There's certainly not 6 buses parked in those 2 bays. And we're ready to move forward. We waited a month after this vote was taken, waiting for the letter to inform us as to what the intention was, what the clarification of the vote was. It never came. So I wrote at least 2, I'm going to say 3 emails, and you have, like I said, you have copies of those inquiring what the intent was. Up until this evening, this is the first feedback we've had on the school's intentions for next year.
And Donna, let me correct you here. You mentioned you heard from Hunter on February 21st. and you responded back that you needed to speak to your school board, and you mentioned you have not had your March meeting yet. Yet 2 days later, on the 23rd, in non-public session, was, according to the draft minutes, discussion of the next steps with regard to the district receiving notice of eviction from the bus barn. So I gotta call you on that. You apparently did speak with your school board 2 days after receiving that letter in a non-public session.
Yes, I just want to answer, just go back. So we have 4 full-size buses, 1 half and 2 vans that are parked in that. We did not speak on the rent, because what I said to them is, I have 3 different amounts. I have 10,600, approximately 10,600, and 10,000 XXX. So I don't know what the...
I'm not concerned about 10,006, 10,000 XXX. You've got a $20 million budget. You know, the XXX is basically pocket change, or what you find in your couch. But we've already moved on to eviction, and that's the discussion before us tonight.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
One clarification, the XXX was a typographical error. It was intended to be 3 zeros, but a simple phone call would have addressed that issue. And I do take some exception. The school has made it a point of discussing this in at least one public forum that I'm aware of, that you referred to earlier, and a simple phone call to our office could have addressed all of their concerns.
Anyone on the board?
I just want to say again, we knew this going into this was going to be a difficult decision for an unpopular discussion to talk about, which is why we spoke very clearly about not throwing you guys out to nowhere, but allowing your lease money to be developed into something that would be of your choosing, of your setup, and affording you guys a long-term lease ability there. And I think we even talked about a no money, lease or a dollar lease or things of that sort that would afford you that opportunity to develop that other area. But as we looked at our budget, and as we went through our budget hearing, we talked to the different department heads about where our town is storing all of our equipment and lease payments that we make to different entities to store our stuff in different places. And although unpopular to have you guys move out now at this time, your board's discussion and then it coinciding with our needs of the town, to kind of everything's matching up. Time-wise, it may not be as well maybe thought out because of the lack of discussion between the two boards. But I think now is a great time to start moving forward, and as Kurt said, start over. Yep, you can start over and build whatever you need, develop what you need, and the town can start over and utilize our whole building and move forward in a clearer fashion. And I just hope that the lack of communication or discussion, it's unfortunate. I don't think it's anyone's intention to hurt one entity over another. Certainly we all are talking about the same tax pockets, right? Your tax pockets, our tax, same pockets.
Exactly.
And it's no one greater than the other, right? And certainly we don't have any intention of harming children or families. And that's why I was saying I was trying to draw the correlation between parking the buses outside and how that is physically harming the children or the families. Tough stretch for me. And I get it. Certainly we don't want to be injurious to the school in any way, shape, or form. There's got to be a way that we can move forward in a nice, easy way where everybody can have what they need to have without costing the taxpayers any more money.
And at our last meeting, we gave the town manager direction to send that notice of termination of lease, eviction notice. But, I realize it's important for this board to own that decision, and therefore I put it on our agenda tonight so that we can have another public discussion about it and go on record whatever way that is. So, Donna?
I asked if the board could please give us the opportunity to get the information that has been requested. I'd also like to ask for the board to let us look into how long we've been there and the intent of the space that we are currently using. I also asked the board if this is something that they want to move forward with. As you know, our budget has already been established, and this would be hardship on the district. And I would hope that the board would say that this could be something that may take place next year. So this way, it would allow for us to plan accordingly. So if the choice is to evict us from that area, that it not be for the upcoming school year, that would be for the school year following. So this way, it gives us the opportunity to, if necessary, look at the spaces in the warmer weather when there's not snow, get quotes to see how much it would cost. I think you're asking, this is the beginning of March, and we'd have to be out the end of June, right? That would be unrealistic for us to be able, and we have summer program that we run, that would impact a lot of the stuff that we have going on. We also have, as you know, we have rooms that we have to rebuild in our school that our maintenance crew has to do in order for the start of our school. So I would ask that you would at least consider if this is something that the plan would be for not this upcoming school year, but the following school year, giving us time to do necessary arrangements that we have to.
Oh, Hunter?
I appreciate that perspective, but in order to accommodate that, we would have to displace some of our equipment. That's of equal value and importance, some of which, including our ambulance equipment and things of that nature, which have to be in controlled environments. And so it's going to take us several months to convert that space to that purpose. And we would certainly want that done before foul weather arrives next fall. So I don't see that there's an upside to that. If the situation was reversed, it wouldn't take me long to come up with a plan for outdoor shelter for those vehicles, and that could easily be accomplished between now and I suspect.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Jeff,
Yes, Barry.
I'm getting a little confused here, the fact that we had a lengthy discussion at our last meeting.
Yep.
We gave Hunter direction.
Yep.
He carried that out. So an eviction notice has already been served.
Yep.
So are we going to renege on that, or, I'm just trying to figure, nobody's got, nobody wants to hurt the district. I do think there's real need for communication and understanding about working together. I do believe that. But I'm a little concerned that we've already made a decision. That decision has been carried out, and now all of a sudden we're moving backwards on that. Because we've designed how we want to use that area, and it's part of our budgetary process. So we have to kind of be concerned about our own budgets too. And I understand the school district does too, but that's where I am.
All right. Anyone want to make a motion? Regarding our decision at the last meeting?
Move to reaffirm the decision that we made at our last meeting to submit the termination of the lease and the eviction notice.
Do you want to add or offer the school district space out in the yard
You can offer
for $1?
a lease plan for $1 for a piece of property at the Department of Public Works for whatever use and amount of space to be determined for their bus barn usage.
There a second?
Second.
We have second from Keith. Any other discussion? Take a roll call vote. Barry?
Just wanted to mention that over the summer should give you plenty of time to figure out where you're going to park those buses in the same parking area, just not inside the building.
take a vote. Barry?
Vote to reaffirm.
Herb?
Vote to reaffirm.
Jim?
Same.
Vote
Keith?
to reaffirm.
And I'll vote the same way. So we voted to affirm the eviction. Thank you for coming in.
Can I say something on that? Jeff? Can I
Sure.
make a statement? You're just gonna, you got a lot of equipment and stuff inside that barn that the mechanic uses, that you're just throwing him outdoors. All the spare tires, wheels, parts and stuff that he has in there.
All right.
I mean,
I believe it was, Jeff,
Yes.
I believe it was our intention to say to them that if they needed to get repairs, we're not throwing the repair process out. If they need to come in and do repairs in there, I thought we were amenable to that.
And let me just say this. This is middle of March. They have until end of June to get out. That's 4.5 months. What we need to do is have someone talk to us. Which if we had someone talking to us last fall, we may not be here. But this is where we are.
I'm just mentioning, Eddie's a good friend of mine, and I just turned around and mentioned that, he's been laying in the dirt out there doing things since they took the third bay away. When they put the office space in, and the water department moved over a few years back, I don't know how many years, but, Eddie's been doing the buses ever since the buses have been down there, ever since that building was done.
Okay.
And they-
All right.
I know we used to also use the mechanics bay.
Yeah,
So, which,
but
I don't see why.
up until just a year ago, he was able to use the water department bay to do service on the buses, until they said that he couldn't back the water department truck out anymore.
So you mean to say they took away the ability to do maintenance on pavement?
Yes.
On cement?
Yes, they took it away.
Can I ask a question?
We're pretty much done with this, but go ahead.
I just want to know, did I hear you say that the maintenance of our buses can be done in your bays?
No, what I basically said, I would recommend that there's some communication between your bus people and our highway people, and they can maybe work something out.
Okay, because
Between-
that's what I thought that he had said, that there was
Yeah.
something about allowing
Right.
us to
It's-
use the bay. And
Yeah, that was discussed. I don't want to give the wrong impression. That was discussed. I think Jim Burrows spoke to that, why not let them, if need done, we don't want somebody working out in the snow.
Only changes was the fact that we would be taking over those two bays. Everything else was staying as it was. And that we would hopefully find a way to give you guys the ability to develop space outside, space across the way.
So so that's not part of the motion though, but what I'm hearing you say, and I just want to make sure this is in the minutes, is that the school district can use a bay with a concrete floor to do repairs on their buses.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying your bus people should talk to the highway people and collaborate with them. Let them work. Let them come to some understanding or, try to work this out at their level.
That's what I'm hearing you say. I'm hearing you say that 100%, but I have two other board members that are
Right.
saying something different.
But I'm not saying, well, on Tuesdays from 2 to 3, you get the.
Correct.
We're not doing, it basically, this whole thing was because no one from the school came to the town about issues back last summer, last fall, whenever. And it'd probably be a good place to start now, going forward, to see how they could collaborate.
When did you come forward to the school and say that you wanted to take over this bay so that you could take the stuff from the landfill down here on the Meadow and et cetera, which is your intent? Your real intent was the Jeff's move is to move us out. And Jeff denied it. He just said it 3 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So All of this, as far as I'm concerned, is a charade, Jeff, to move us out. We had 4 bays, you took one, and you took another one, and now you want the other 2, as he said. And that's the intent. You haven't discussed the locking of the door for the toilets. You haven't discussed, you didn't plow in front of the doors. Why? These are retaliatory things that you're doing. And if in fact someone did go into the office and look at paperwork, and that's why you locked us out, then why wasn't there a call to the superintendent saying, hey, we've got this problem, you gotta fix it? So you can say non-communication, but it's no different. You got just as big a problem with us now as you've got with the county. You can't use the elevator because you couldn't negotiate with them, and it was too offensive. You just blew it, period. So you are not community. You are looking out for what you want to do, not for what the community needs to do. So that all being said, the maintenance and cleaning of those buses in the wintertime, you are making it a very hard thing to do. But Jeff,
Again, I'll ask, did anyone ask for a key to the bathroom? How are we supposed to know the bathroom was locked? So and as to your timeline.
Jeff, wait a minute.
No.
Why is it locked? Why is it locked? You're afraid that somebody's gonna go in there and steal something? Out of the bathroom?
The response I got from Todd Cartier when I mentioned that to him, it's like the bathroom was locked. It's like, who knows?
They were told not to use the bathrooms.
Well, again, this is stuff that should have been handled by the people down there.
Yeah, I should think somebody would have called the district and said, hey, because the story goes that somebody was doing something in the office. Why? And if that's not the case, then dispel it. But that being said, Jeff,
This is the first I'm hearing it, and I'm hearing it from you. So it's hard to dispel something I've just heard. And as far as your timeline, that this whole thing is to kick you out so we could repurpose it, it's backwards. You guys chose to not pay rent and stuff, and basically went down this path, and we basically are accepting.
Would you read me the email that says that we're not gonna pay? Because I went through them today and there is none. So why don't you, you're spouting out facts like Claremont and et cetera. Why don't you espouse them now and show us where we said we were not gonna pay rent?
Have you ever heard of the First Amendment?
Yes, I
Are
have.
you a believer in it?
Yeah.
Are you a believer
Yeah.
in being able to speak what you want without being interrupted?
Yep, go right ahead.
Do you realize that other people should have that same right?
That's right.
Are you willing to let other people have that same right?
Sure I am, Jeff.
Since when? But 1 minute ago, you jumped right in all over me.
I did. And you jumped in on me a number of times, Jeff, while I was speaking. So now, what are you trying to say here, Jeff? That you're fucking God? No way. Okay?
No.
You have interrupted me a number of times. So, you want to have a pissing contest? You lose.
Okay, we're moving on. This item, we've done this item, so. Where's my agenda?
Community center update.
All right, community center update. Community center, bid documents are still being worked on. The latest issue with the community center is because we're getting a lot of money from the federal government. They're working on figuring out what hoops they want us to jump through. We've got to do archaeological impact,
Well, not quite yet, but that might be one of the.
environmental impact
Phase
and
one.
stuff. So, I mean, they're asking for, they're sort of sitting there saying, before we give you your $4.7 million, what else can we have you do? And stuff, so they're adding stuff. And I think one issue we're having is we're subject to the Biden, Buy American, Build American. So things need to be sourced from American sources where possible, so that basically means going back and rechecking a lot of their specs and stuff. So we've got a couple weeks delay before we get the bid documents in. So that's where we are with that.
What else we got? Can I say something on that?
Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And I'm not bashful, I'm against the community center. And the main reason is, we voted it out 2 years in a row, right? The town,
We voted out the bond to pay for it.
no, voted out, the town people voted not to build that.
They voted not to bond $4 million to build it.
Right, to build
Why
that.
are you two interrupting him twice here?
Yeah. So we couldn't do it then. And now, you say you got a grant, but I heard you say that you don't know if you got the grant until June or July?
Well, you want me to speak to this
Sure.
process? So, the two previous votes by the town meeting were to authorize the issuance of bonds, not on should we build a community center or not build a community center. So, the town has been working on funding sources for this for several years. As Mr. Kessler indicated, we received a $4.7 million congressional earmark. Once a single dollar of federal monies enters into a project, they own the whole project. The entire project succumbs to the various federal requirements that might apply. So we are working through a list of various phase one, environmental, historical review, things of all that nature stuff. The funding has been approved by the United States Congress. It is included in the current budget and is making its way from the Capitol. It's not that far away, so it's kind of funny to see how long it takes, but it's making its way from Congress to the Department of Agriculture, who will then allocate it to the Rural Development Agency for final disposition. The Rural Development Agency anticipates the arrival of those funds in June, July, or August. They're not certain because they've never done this before. They're not quite certain when they will arrive, but the monies are secured and allocated to the town of Newport. And
It's not guaranteed.
Oh, no, it's, well, short of the United States government collapsing, yes, it is guaranteed. It's approved in the United States congressional budget for the entire government, so it's part of the approved budget for the ensuing fiscal year.
Okay, so if it goes over budget, what happens then?
Or what goes over budget?
This bill?
The project?
Yeah.
So we have raised approximately, don't hold me to this number, probably another $4+ million that is starting to arrive. Once the bids are set out and received, we'll assess the bids, and if the bids are within budget, the two combined sources, the two buckets of funding, then I expect that the town will sign a contract to initiate construction. If they are not, we have some alternative funding ideas that we believe will come to the rescue and close the gap or eliminate the gap. The current estimates for the project are well within the amount of money that we've raised, so we don't anticipate any financial conflicts, but there are no taxpayer funds involved in the construction of the project.
If it goes to budget the way it's supposed to.
Sure, and there are contingencies in the project, just like there is in any big construction project. The company that we rely on, we feel very confident, we've worked with before. They've had a good track record in estimating construction costs. Construction costs actually seem to be moderating right now, so we think that's going to be in our favor. But nobody really knows for sure what reality is until the bids come back, and we expect that those will begin.
But you're already talking of tearing those buildings down that are down there.
We would not do that until the project is contracted and executed. And to Mr. Kessler's point, we had money in that budget for that purpose, but when this issue arose, we saw an opportunity to do something different that we hadn't considered before.
But see, that makes the ball roll from there, picking the school out. I mean, it just moves everything all around.
We think for the betterment of the overall community.
Well, I just, if the money's not guaranteed to be there, it's like going to the bank and borrow money.
We don't sign
nothing until.
We don't sign construction or any other kind of contracts unless we're certain the monies are available.
So you don't start nothing until find out if the government money is there.
The government money is there. It's a question of when is it gonna be made available to us, but the money is there.
Well, the way government works is the way this town works, screwed up.
Well, I'm not sure I can agree with any of that, but if, I posed that question to the representative of the USRDA, and I said the only chance that this money is not going to arrive is if the federal government collapses, and he said, yes, that's correct, but that's not going to happen, so don't worry about it. Okay, I don't think it's going to happen either.
Now, I've seen things go wrong before with that.
Well, but there's federal money coming to all kinds of programs. If that happens, the last.
Why are you spending a lot of money, you know?
The least of your concerns, will be the bus barn, I can assure you.
No, no.
Every federal program in the
I don't have
country-
nothing to do with the bus barn.
in the country will
Yeah.
be in jeopardy, so.
I don't have nothing to do with the bus barn.
Social Security will disappear, there's all kinds of other things that will, but that's not likely to happen, so.
Donna?
I just had a question. What happens if you have the same thing that happened to us? The cost of goods rose so much that we had to go back to the state and ask for $1.5 million more.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, this project is being monitored as we go. The project is 2 years old. The budget was 7.4, 7.2, somewhere around there. A couple of years ago, we raised money in excess of that to accommodate inflation. The inflation numbers have been evaluated on about every 90-day or maybe 3, 4, 5 month basis. So we believe our current construction numbers are current and accurate. And as I mentioned just a moment ago, we actually think that the cost of construction is coming down. So we're likely to have more money than less money. But we have a couple of contingencies in place that would, I believe, cover a significant change in that number if it were to go up.
And until you actually get your bids back, you don't know what the real number is.
Yeah.
Now, when it first, when you take the buildings out down there, and then the rec center or community center is built, the old armory is coming apart, and you were gonna put a building there to put the maintenance people back in there?
That was the original plan.
That was the original plan.
Right.
Now
Now we
you're gonna
don't
put
have
them
to do
clear up to the highway garage.
Put
So
them
now
back.
you're spending all the money to bring stuff into town all the time.
Well, the amount of money that we'll save by making this transition will cover the kind of money you're talking about for many, 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 many years to come. And it will be occupied.
You'll be long gone by that time.
Yes, most of us will, I suspect, but the project will be much less expensive. That equipment will be parked in an occupied, heated, observed, controlled environment, and we're actually going to make better use out of the existing town property. And then it'll be up to the select board as to what they decide they want to do with the old rec center, whether they want to sell it as is, demolish the building, and we've reserved money for them to do that if they wish to do that, and sell it to some other third party. It's entirely up to them.
See, I've never heard that you change not to do nothing with that building going up there.
That came about when this opportunity presented itself. You know, we're constantly looking for different ways of doing things, and this seemed like an opportune moment to make that decision.
All right, moving on, dog park. And community garden. I just want to comment that last week we received the shoreline protection permit. Since these are being built within the shoreline protection area, and that basically is like the last, I guess, administrative hurdle to moving forward.
That's correct.
And more than likely, that will start probably as soon as the ground accommodates it, correct?
Yep, we'll need to see how spring progresses, but we'll look for the ground to dry up a little and get firm, so that we don't go in there and make a mud puddle out of the place.
Okay.
And Public Works will be overseeing most of that project, and it'll be done this summer, for sure.
Okay.
So pretty simple, straightforward at this point. Once it starts, it should go lickety split. It's basically building two enclosed areas for different purposes, but not a lot of heavy lifting in that regard. It should be quick.
Okay.
So it'll be a nice little attribute. And I do note, for those who might be interested in their taxpayer dollars, that both of these projects are being built with
monies other than local property tax revenues.
That's good.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, we do.
You hear from me, find out.
Well, we've got, come on by, we'll share with you the list we have. We got about $26 million worth of all that stuff going on. That you won't have to pay for as a taxpayer.
If you go out downstairs to the parking lot on the wall, there's a lot of that stuff is up on the wall, what we're doing through grants and such.
And so, if I might add to that, along that same note, in the next 2 or 3 months, if you see all the new windows going in this building and new air conditioning, and don't get upset, though, that's being paid for. 80% of that's being paid for by federal.
Now, the other thing, as with the rec center, is I watched the taxpayers vote it down 2 years running, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's going through anyway. So, I was on the Hill for over 20 years, paid taxes, lived in Claremont, and now, I'm retired, I live on less budget, so, I'm living here in Newport. And I do a lot of stuff in Newport, I bring a lot of people into Newport with my cruise nights, so, I care about Newport, it's a nice little town. And the rec center being down back there, we're used to having the ball field and everything else down there, and it's just,
Ball field's not going anywhere. It's just being turned 180 degrees.
Gotta get a new one.
that's good, you can cut them lights out, don't shine in my back window.
Point out your back window, we'll name one specifically.
Shouldn't have cut all those trees down around your house.
No, it was before.
All
That's
right,
right, I live right next door to where they're gonna put it, so.
all right, that's the only thing I have on the dog park. I know people at times have wondered about that. It's not quite ready
Yeah,
to.
my wife asked about that tonight, says that 2 years ago, we actually got some money for that.
We got I guess we won a grant
Yeah.
for $25,000 from PetSmart, is that it?
Yes, that is
And
correct.
we've matched that with other donations, so pretty much we have about $60,000 to put into that in the community garden going in next door. So. All right, ice skating rink. I wanted to just mention this because I noticed the weekend before last, the first weekend of school vacation, the temperatures were ideal for making ice, yet there's no one around to do it. And
PJ was headed for Florida.
but the point is, do we need other volunteers? It shouldn't just be PJ. I mean, ice skating on the common is like, it's almost like our, what's his name, Norman Rockwell picture of Newport. And
Isn't the rec center in charge of that?
right, but it's the sort of thing, it's like, there's been volunteers that have done it. I know it's been a decade since I was last out there watching them do it in the middle of the night. And you have volunteers, they go out there, coldest night they can get, they put down a little layer, go inside, have a cup of hot chocolate, come back out 20 minutes later when it's frozen and add more. But I think perhaps we need to work to try to build up our volunteers who are willing to contribute for something like that, or we reaching the point where we're dragging that hut back and forth just to have it sit there and look at, snow. And part of it is the warmer temperatures, which is impacting us, but, we've had a couple of weekends where, it would have been cold enough to be able to make ice and let the kids in the community enjoy ice skating. And
The weekend before the carnival, it was packed.
right,
You couldn't get any more people on there.
yeah.
They love it.
And that's the sort of thing, if we have crews or volunteers that are willing to go out there, push the snow aside, put some, water down, let it freeze,
What about doing a lineup?
that has been discussed. There's some reluctance in the rec department to going that way. I know Sunapee has a liner, and they basically have ice skating longer in the season than we do.
Yeah. And the place out to, the vegetable place there in Lemster will give you all the plastic you want
Mhm.
to put it out there.
Yeah, it's
Because they
certainly,
change their domes all the time.
yeah, and certainly it was some way to keep the water from running off. We maintain the water, and it may freeze better. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's,
At least when it,
I'd like us to look at, maybe coming up with a way to, address that going forward. And I just wanted to mention it because I drove past there, not this weekend, well, this weekend I was kind of busy pushing
The
some.
weekend before.
Weekend before, it was cold enough to make ice, I think for at least a couple days there, which could have provided some ice skating during, the school break.
A couple of days of it anyway.
Yeah. So, I think we seem to be warming up, so we don't have as much opportunity to have ice out there, and we should try to have the volunteers or the process in place to take advantage of the weather when we have it. So that's all I wanted to say on it. I don't know if anyone else has a comment. Guys aren't into ice skating anymore, right?
In ice skating, yes, but different thought.
Not interested in going out at 2 a.m., freezing temperature, to spray some water.
Beth and Becky might not like this, but BJ can just arrange schedules so that when it's cold, they can work at night. Spray some ice.
Used to be volunteers that get out there. All right, that's all I have on
Let
that.
the hate mail begin.
Budget overview and draft warrant articles. Paul?
So Paul's put together a list, basically a warrant for you. This is not your official review, but we want to give you an extra week's, or an extra couple of weeks' opportunity to review it. So that if you have any changes or concerns or additions you want to make, you can have that time. So tonight is just kind of an informal review of that process. As well as, I suppose, an opportunity for you to make any other changes that you might care to make in the operating budget, proposed operating budget. This is not the official night for doing it, it's just an extra night.
Yep.
So what I've given you is a cheat sheet summarizing the different funds. And the one adjustment that you have made, which is the $1,200 to conservation in the general fund. So the operating budget right now would sit at $10,553,992. And then there's a number of warrant articles to be discussed. And Barry, I emailed this to you. I don't know if you saw it or not.
Yes, I did. Thank you, Paul.
And I can send anybody else an electronic copy if you want.
Yeah, that'd be good at some point, just so I have it online.
So again, don't feel compelled to make your changes tonight. It's just an opportunity for you to take a look at first glance, and you have a formal meeting scheduled to do this.
Right. When is that, the 16th or?
20th.
20th, okay, 2 weeks. So pretty much we're looking at a town budget of $10,553,992. We've got a warrant article for wastewater treatment plant for $23,500,000. That sounds low compared to what I heard 2 weeks ago.
We authorized $4.5 million in 2018.
Okay.
We've gotten legal opinion that authorization remains intact.
Okay. Did we ever spend any of that?
We are spending it as we speak.
Okay, so.
Not as we speak. But the design work has all come out of that.
Right, the $1 million we authorized a couple meetings ago for the design phase with the engineer is coming out of that.
Right, correct. And the report phase and the preliminary design to get to the 30% drawings.
Okay. Now, one of the things we need to keep in mind with the wastewater treatment plant, even though it's a $23.5 million bond, basically just under $10 million of that is going to be coming from we're basically just we're just basically going to be bonding just under $10 million of it.
This time plus the $4.5 million, the net charge to the user is going to be about $13.2 million.
Okay, over how many years?
20 or 30.
Okay.
A little difference in the rates, but then there's additional interest if you go over 30 years.
Right, now, as I mentioned about 2 weeks ago at the public information session, when they were displaying how it would impact the sewer users going forward. I had just spoken to you about you having to replace your septic system a little while ago and amortizing what you spent to pull your tank and replace it and all that stuff over the 25-year life. What it's costing you over, say, 25 years, life of the tank, plus whatever you pay to have it hauled out every 3 years or so, is not far off from what the rates will be, so I think starting in 2026 for users on the sewer system.
Yeah, I'm a little less, but I'm also carrying some risks, so.
Right,
Yeah.
but it's for people who say, well, I'm not going to do that, I'll just put in a septic system, the cost is going to be about the same over time. Anyone? All right, North Newport well. We're going to be doing a bond for $3.4 million, $3,410,000. And we have, what, 3 million of that?
Yes.
Basically from using other people's money. So the impact to the water users over time will be a cost of $500,000.
A little bit more than that, 560? The bond article will be 572,800.
Okay.
And we anticipate that the debt service on that 500 and change can be absorbed in the current rate structure, so there should be no change.
Which need to go up a little bit every year anyway.
They should, yes.
And is there any, I guess, relief from the state or anyone down the road on some of this, like on water projects or so?
Not currently the way this is set up. This project did not qualify for the state revolving loan fund, which has forgiveness.
Okay.
These funds, we've got $1 million grant and a $500,000 loan will be coming through the Drinking Water Groundwater Trust Fund,
Okay.
which comes from the Volkswagen settlement years ago. It's a low-interest loan, but there's no forgiveness component like if we were in the state revolving loan fund.
And Mr. Chair, just to put this in context, the town is basically being asked to fund a little over 16% of this project, with the rest of it being paid for by other non-local property tax resources. It's a good deal.
Yes. And this project is not to provide additional water to the town, but basically guarantee a distinct and separate source from the current water supply, which all runs down through 100-year-old pipes down Unity Road.
Correct. It's a most immediate benefit is in what we refer to loosely as water security, in the redundancy and safety of our system.
Right.
Some years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, I'm assuming our Pollard's Mill well is still running and this well is online, you could conceivably combine the input from both capacity of both of those and buy even more time going forward before you'd have to augment the town's overall water capacity. So it buys us decades and decades of benefit.
Right. And at some point, the state or the feds may decide, that's surface water? We don't like surface water.
People are getting away from surface water and not pursuing it.
Yeah.
It's not stable enough and too much subject to injury, so to speak.
All right. Also, you got a warrant article for an ambulance here, 300,000?
Yes, but that is, annually, we've been putting away $60,000 for ambulance replacement. We're
Yep.
coming due, and with the lead time on ambulances and all things red, actually all vehicles these days, that would be paid for with our annual $60,000 contribution, which would be the tax impact of this article. Plus, we have $60,000 in donations, and we have $180,000 currently in the capital reserve fund, so that makes up the $300,000.
Okay.
So there should be no different, no new tax impact.
Right, we've been putting $60,000 for the last 3 years.
So instead of putting a 60,000 into capital reserve, we're gonna be taking it and adding it with the rest and putting an order in for an ambulance.
Correct. So that has a zero impact?
No,
It's an 810 impact, it's the 60, I mean, it was 60,000 last year, 60,000 this year, so it's flat, but
Nothing new, we would be doing the same thing every year.
All right, and then we're basically replacing the HVAC system on the circuit court building.
Well, not the whole system, one of the units.
Okay.
I will tell you that despite our best efforts to try to keep up with that, the industry is challenging. We're not certain how long it's going to take for us to get that equipment, but we can't order it until we get town meeting authorization to do so, and we'll order it immediately. But there's some indication of some long wait periods for that.
How much do we have in the capital reserve for that?
About $20,000.
Okay, and we're gonna take about 6.5 or so out for this,
Correct.
and then raise 10 at town meeting.
and this is again 10, we've raised 10 for the last few years, so that's
Right.
consistent, and then we're pulling 6 to keep the number consistent to buy
Okay,
the equipment.
with looking at replacing the HVAC system, is this just air conditioning or is this heating and air conditioning? And there is sort of a trend, at least in the press, that efficiencies can be made with heat pumps. Do we look at something like that where basically, utilize it for heating and cooling until we need to turn on the boiler or whatever?
We will look at that before we place the equipment order, to see if there's a good payback or viable, more economical.
Right, because if we can do some of the heating with electricity along with air conditioning, I mean, we know what our electrical rate is, so. All right, and $5,000 in the Communication Capital Reserve Fund, that's a traditional one we always do.
Yes.
And then 10,000 into the Rec Facility Capital Reserve. And this is not for the community center, but this is mainly for fields upkeep and such like that, right?
Fields, courts, yes.
Okay.
Backstops, tennis courts.
Yeah. And we're doing $16,000 for the Recreation Facility Capital Reserve. Oh, the Natural Resource Inventory, $16,000 there.
It's been a special request made to help the Conservation Commission fund the natural, it's NIA report. And so we've put that in there for your consideration.
Okay.
We've received direction from the board in that regard.
Now, we also talked about perhaps doing it out of fund balance.
Yes.
Is that a discussion we need to have, which way we wanted to go? Because I thought we were leaning more toward fund balance.
Last time I thought we talked about it was fund balance.
That's my inclination. There's one person in the room who might, and I emphasize in the room, who might not be as confident about that as I am, but I'm not losing any sleep over that. I'm losing sleep over other things, but not that.
Jeff, when I get back, I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. I thought this issue was settled, but
It is, as far as I'm concerned.
Settled which way? Going with the article?
coming out of fund balance for this year.
Right. Right, we do need a proposal
Yeah,
before the year
yeah,
ends.
very much aware of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
So we may decide to take this out at some point.
Correct.
And that's fine. These were all potential warrant articles, so.
Okay,
Okay, excuse me.
yes.
Maura Stetson, concerning this $16,000 under board BOS adjustments. It says conservation and then it says $1,200. What does that pertain to?
That's in the budget, that's part of the operating budget request,
Right, that's separate from this.
separate.
Okay.
This will be to hire a firm to do the natural resources inventory for the Conservation Commission.
And Conservation came up with their own line item in the budget for $1,200 yearly stipend, I guess.
Thank you.
All right, also next up is a warrant article for $189,400 for repairs and replacements of parts of the roof at the library. This was one they came to us and we voted to include it as one of our articles. And then we have one petition article, Paul, so far.
One petition article so far. Yeah.
What's the due date on those, the 12th?
It's the school voting days, about
12th, I think, or
right inside the budget.
whatever Tuesday is.
It is the 14th.
14th, okay. Pretty much 14th, so they've got a week from tomorrow for any petition articles. All right. Now, some others you've got in here that aren't on your list are basically to modify the elderly exemption and the exemption for disabled, correct?
That's correct. So these were based on the most recent reval. In January, you granted abatements to qualified elderly exemption holders up to these amounts.
Right.
This will just ratify those amounts going forward.
All right.
The other thing that this article will do is it changes the income limits based on the COLAs for Social Security for the last 5 years, and then actually projecting two years into the future with the average for the last 8 years to just try and, so we're not coming back every year to do that. Historically, what we've done is we've done it in the year of a reval, we've done it in the middle of the cycle, and then we come back in the year of a reval. So that's the two changes in Articles 14 and 15.
All right. And Article 16, readopt the optional veterans tax credit.
Yes, so for some reason the legislature in March, May, required that all towns who use the alternate or the optional veterans credit or the all veterans credit need to reauthorize them. I don't know why.
So we're not in trouble for signing those,
No,
Just want a reaffirmation.
okay.
How many do we have, Paul, do you know?
108,000 to 216, roughly.
Not 250, 260.
Well,
Not 270. That's fast math.
Are they requesting that on a yearly basis now, or is it going to be, is this
no,
10 years?
veterans do a one-time application.
No, I mean the reaffirmation.
No,
Just
I don't know. There's no real
no
explanation
time,
for
no
this.
time window.
Yeah, there's no real explanation for this. And it was actually a deadline of March 1st, but they signed the law, the governor signed the law in June, after our town meeting. We don't have another town meeting, so we're complying the best we can.
Yeah. All right. Anything else about the budget to discuss tonight?
No, really, this was just kind of an opportunity for you to ask any questions or
Yeah.
make any other changes you wanted to before your next meeting, if you so chose.
In the budget, it includes the salary adjustments
Yes.
that are in there?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think we mentioned
A non-meeting at some point tonight.
some of this one. We
Yeah.
can elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah.
You're not there.
All right. What else is on that agenda? All right. Okay. Need a non-public session under 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2A, dismissal, promotion, or compensation of employees. And after that, we will come out of non-public, have an adjournment, and then have to do a non-meeting for negotiations.
I make a motion, we go into non-public session under RSA 91A3, colon 2, small a, dismissal, promotion, or compensation of employees. Second.
All right. Barry?
Yes.
Herb?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Keith?
Yes,
And I'll vote yes. And it's just gonna be the five of us to start?
And Barry's gonna stay on, I take it?
Yes.
Yes.
As long as no one else is listening in.
No, there's nobody but,
All right, and then we'll call you down when we need you. I forgot about my coffee, it was such an exciting night.
are we going off?
Yes. Well,